Welcome to TrandHub. Subscribe for more updates. The world of linguistics rarely makes headlines, and for most people, the debates and discoveries in this field pass quietly, unnoticed by the wider public. But on September 28, 2025, everything changed. On that day, linguistics became front-page news, capturing the attention of millions around the globe. A headline blazed across screens and papers everywhere. Harvard linguist retracts. Decades of research, admits. Filipino English is a vibrant, legitimate world language. The story spread like wildfire. Dr. Alastair Finch, once a staunch critic and a towering figure in his field, stood before a packed Harvard auditorium and confessed, "I was wrong, utterly and profoundly wrong." For years, Finch had dismissed Filipino English as a degraded form, insisting it was merely a flawed imitation of the so-called standard English. Now he was apologizing to a nation of over 100 million. The impact was instant and deeply felt, reverberating through homes, schools, and public spaces. Social media erupted with pride and vindication. Hashtags trended, and messages of celebration poured in from Filipinos everywhere. Filipinos, long mocked for their English, finally saw their language recognized as powerful and dynamic. For many, it was a moment of long-awaited justice. This wasn't just an academic correction, it was a global reckoning, a moment that forced the world to reconsider its assumptions about language and identity. Linguists, educators, and corporations were forced to reconsider, what does it mean to speak English correctly? Who gets to decide what is proper or acceptable? Finch's confession challenged the very idea of linguistic superiority, shaking the foundations of long-held beliefs in academia and beyond. It suggested language evolves through adaptation and creativity, not decay. Every dialect, every accent is a testament to human ingenuity. The world was finally ready to listen to Filipino English, a voice that had been eloquent all along but too often ignored or dismissed. This event set off a chain reaction, forcing a reevaluation of standards everywhere, from classrooms to boardrooms, and even in international diplomacy. For generations, Filipinos had been told their English was broken, that it was something to be fixed or hidden away. Now the world was catching up, finally recognizing the richness and legitimacy of Filipino English on the global stage. The apology was more than words, it was a validation of identity, a long overdue acknowledgement of a people's voice. Filipino English was not just valid, it was a force, shaping conversations, culture, and commerce in ways the world could no longer ignore. The world's ears were open at last, ready to hear new stories and perspectives. The story was no longer about error, but about evolution, about the beauty of change and the power of acceptance. And the world would never see English the same way again. The conversation had changed forever. For decades, Filipino English was dismissed as a lesser version, charming but flawed. Stereotypes and prejudice shaped global perceptions, affecting everything from call center training to business meetings. Taglish, the blend of Tagalog and English, was seen as a failure, not a feat of bilingual dexterity. This mindset, rooted in colonial attitudes, created insecurity and real-world barriers for Filipinos. Academics like Dr. Finch built careers on the idea of language decay, missing the innovation and cultural richness of Filipino English. The world judged Filipino English by outdated standards, ignoring its creativity and adaptability. The stage was set for a confrontation, not of armies, but of ideas. Dr. Finch, a Harvard linguist, was convinced Filipino English was proof of language decay. He set out for Manila, determined to collect evidence for his theory. Armed with recorders and notebooks, he planned to document errors in everyday speech. He saw himself as the guardian of linguistic purity, expecting to find broken English everywhere. His mission was clear: confirm his biases and cement his legacy. But as he boarded his flight, he had no idea he was about to be proven wrong. Finch viewed Filipinos as subjects, not co-communicators. He was blind to the possibility that his own framework was flawed. He expected simplicity but would soon encounter complexity and creativity. His journey would become one of humbling self-discovery. The crusade for purity was about to unravel. Manila was waiting to teach him a lesson he never expected. Finch's research began the moment he landed in Manila, stepping into a world both familiar and unexpectedly vibrant. In a taxi, he expected broken English, but the driver's fluency and idiomatic mastery surprised him, weaving stories with a confidence that defied every stereotype Finch had brought with him. Instead of errors, he heard engaging stories and perfect idioms, delivered with humor and warmth that made the ride feel like a lively introduction to the city's spirit. At his hotel, the front desk clerk used advanced grammar effortlessly, handling complex questions with poise and a natural command of the language. Finch, who had lectured on such grammar, was stunned to hear it used so naturally, as if the rules he taught were simply part of daily conversation here. Even ordering room service, he found himself in a conversation about adobo, described with culinary precision and passion, the staff painting a vivid picture of flavors and tradition. "It's a symphony, sir," the operator said, a phrase that echoed in Finch's mind, capturing the unexpected poetry in everyday exchanges. He had come to document decay, but found poetry instead, his expectations unraveling with every conversation and observation. His notebooks remained empty of the errors he'd expected, the pages blank where he thought he'd find evidence of decline. The data was not cooperating, refusing to fit the narrative he had prepared so carefully back home. Every interaction challenged his assumptions, each encounter revealing a new layer of linguistic skill and cultural nuance. The broken English he sought was nowhere to be found, replaced by eloquence and a unique local flavor. Instead, he encountered eloquence and depth, from students debating passionately to professionals discussing complex ideas with ease. The first cracks in his theory appeared before he even unpacked, as reality clashed with his academic expectations. Finch realized he was not the expert here, but a student in a classroom far larger than he'd imagined. The people he met wielded English with creativity and confidence, shaping it into something vibrant and distinctly their own. His certainty began to crumble, replaced by a growing sense of humility and curiosity. The city itself became his greatest teacher, its energy and diversity offering lessons he never expected to learn. He was forced to listen, not just analyze, absorbing the rhythms and stories that filled the air. The ivory tower was starting to shake, its foundations rattled by the vibrant reality outside its walls. Hoping to find flaws, Finch attended a university debate at the University of the Philippines. He expected grammatical errors but witnessed a masterclass in English oratory. Students argued complex topics with sophistication, wielding English as a tool for powerful, original arguments. Their accents were Filipino, but their command of the language was undeniable. They weren't imitating English, they were owning it, shaping it to their reality. Finch put down his pen, stunned by their linguistic agility. The weaknesses he sought were nowhere to be found. Filipino English was not a copy, it was a creation. Determined to find pidgin English, Finch ventured into Quiapo Market. He approached a fruit vendor expecting broken speech. Instead, she explained the mangosteen in clear, melodic English, even offering a metaphor for life. She switched between English, Tagalog, Cebuano, and even basic Korean with ease. Her language adapted to every customer, always effective, always clear. Finch realized this was not language decay, but linguistic genius. The vendor was a communications expert, connecting with anyone who approached. He watched her bargain, explain, and teach, all with effortless code switching. Her English was practical, precise, and even philosophical. Finch's theories seemed foolish in the face of her reality. The market was a symphony of languages, not a site of decay. He saw creativity, not error. The common folk were masters of adaptation. Finch felt humbled by their skill. His academic framework crumbled further. The real world was far more complex and beautiful than his theories allowed. At the National Education Conference, Finch expected talk of Western standards. Instead, the theme was our language, our identity, the future of Philippine English. Dr. Elena Reyes, a local linguist, declared, "Our English is not a mistake, it is our heritage." She challenged the idea of a single correct English, celebrating Filipino idioms and humor. "We are not breaking the rules, we are expanding them," she said. The audience erupted in applause, proud and defiant. Filipino educators weren't asking for permission, they were declaring independence. Finch saw his own theories dismantled, not with anger but with pride. He realized he'd marginalized a vibrant, intelligent people. The features he'd called errors were badges of identity. For the first time, Finch saw the other side of his research. He was not an objective observer, he was part of the problem. When Finch visited a public elementary school in Manila, he arrived with certain expectations. He imagined rows of silent students, rote memorization, and the struggle to master a foreign language. But what he discovered was something entirely different. A classroom bursting with energy, laughter, and creativity. The children wrote and recited poems about their families, expressing themselves in clear, heartfelt English that revealed both their skills and their emotions. "My mother is a star, my father is the moon," one small boy read aloud, his words simple yet deeply moving, echoing through the room and touching everyone who listened. The teacher applauded their efforts, celebrating their creativity and imagination. not just their grammar or pronunciation. She reminded them, "Your stories matter, and English is just one beautiful way to share them with the world beyond these walls." Finch began to see English not as a set of rigid rules, but as a living vessel for self-expression and connection. After class, the teacher confided in him. Her greatest challenge was convincing the children that their English was already good enough to be heard and understood. She encouraged her students to speak from the heart, to share their thoughts bravely, and not to let fear of mistakes hold them back. Finch realized then that language is about meaning and connection, not just about perfect correctness or flawless grammar. The classroom was filled with a sense of pride and accomplishment, not insecurity or self-doubt. The children weren't just learning English, they were shaping it, making it their own, and using it to tell their unique stories. Finch finally understood, language truly lives and breathes in the stories we choose to tell and share with others. It's not about purity or perfection, but about forging real connections and understanding. The lesson he witnessed was simple, yet profoundly transformative for everyone involved. In their hands, English was not just a subject. It was alive, vibrant, and full of possibility. Finch returned to Harvard a changed man. He canceled his book tour and called a special faculty meeting. Standing before peers and journalists, he publicly retracted his theories. "I went to the Philippines to find language decay," he said. "Instead, I found vibrancy, wit, and sophistication." He praised the taxi driver, the debaters, the market vendor, and the school children. Filipino English is not a deviation, it is a standard in its own right. The confession sent shockwaves through academia. Linguistics departments worldwide began to re-examine their standards. The concept of world Englishes entered the mainstream. For Filipinos, it was a moment of immense pride. Their language was finally respected on the world stage. Companies revised accent policies. Hollywood embraced authentic Filipino voices. Thanks to one professor's humility, the world was finally listening. Filipino English was not just legitimate, it was beautiful, powerful, and uniquely their own.